day, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Warframe guide. Today we're looking at a beginner's basics guide of Volt, the lovely electricity dude that he is. As a quick disclaimer, this is a very basic beginner's build. There are certain things we're going to miss, but we're just going to look at the base fundamentals to make sure you all know what this lovely lad does on a day-by-day basis. But before we get into any further parts of that, I would like to iterate the fact that there are links to my social media and Twitch down below. These videos are generally recorded in my Twitch, where we get you together and have fun and do games with followers, help learn things and teach stuff, and enjoy Warframe to the fullest. So if you would ever like to come and join us, feel free to. We are always happy to have you with us. So, first things first, Volt! What is he? Who is he? What does he do? Volt is a caster type frame. He is one of the initial frames you can choose at the beginning of the game as one of your starters. However, he is also obtainable through the game itself as well. Now, to start with, Volt Basic, the non-prime version, at level 30, will start out with 300 health, 450 shields, 15 armor, and 150 energy. The primed version, and this is actually one of the examples of a prime frame that becomes superior, much better than the base version. The prime version has 300 health, 450 shields, 100 armor, and 300 energy. That extra energy for Volt is ideal because he is very caster intensive in any sense of the word. Volt himself is obtained from the Tenno Labs, and the prime version as it stands is currently vaulted. However, he is a DE favorite, and it is very likely going to be unvaulted during events in the future, so keep an eye out on the Warframe website and in the game for when he is unvaulted. Otherwise, the only way of obtaining Volt Prime right now is either through special events like Twitch Prime or by buying it off other people. Also, slight disclaimer, it may say I have a key on at the moment. It's lying! Volt's passive is Static Discharge. Static Discharge is a buff that builds up over time as you run. Anything that is ground related will generate this charge that will stack up to 1,000 times. Bearing in mind that the faster you run, so if you equip things like Rush or any sprint mods, the faster this buff stacks. Jumping, however, and any time spent off the ground does not count towards that buff. Although, if you have slide mods, such as lightning jump or anything of that nature, those mods that allow you to slide faster or run faster will then subsequently help you as well. So once you build up this stack, this is a really good way of one-shotting slightly high-level targets, although for super high-level targets, it's not really going to add too much to your overall damage, but for one-shotting things of the mid-range is a very good thing to build up, especially if you then work it in conjunction with some of your other abilities as well. Volt's one is called Shock. Shock is an arc of lightning that will generate from Volt's hands in the direction you are facing, hitting the first target within 15 meters and chaining up to 5 times, assuming there are enough enemies within range. This bolt of lightning has a 100% guaranteed status chance, which means that any enemy hit will be stunned, incapacitated for about 1.5 seconds. The damage this deals is generated by your power strength, so building more power strength to make it hit harder, and the chain jump distance and the length that the initial cast goes for is dictated by your power range. So building more power range will let chain further, hit more targets, and go further on the initial cast. Now, this ability works really well in conjunction with Volt's other abilities, although it doesn't scale tremendously well at high levels. You'll use this in conjunction with his passive, as well as things like other frames buffs, and also in conjunction with your 4, which we'll explain later. Now, the augment that goes with this ability is called Shock Trooper. Shock Trooper is a augment that allows you to cast your 1 on an ally, and subsequently leap to other enemies as well, that will then give that player an extra electrical buff. And the buff that gives is based on power strength. The duration of the buff is also based on power duration, and using this is a way of then working in conjunction with other elements. It generates a guaranteed electrical damage buff to that ally. So it then allows that player to deal ludicrous amounts of damage if they're using it in conjunction with something that works well with electricity. So for example, a radiation weapon will get bonus radiation, or if they have toxin, it turns into corrosive. Speed is Volt's 2. Speed is a very simple ability that increases run speed, reload time, and attack speed of melee weapons. The initial cast of this without mods will increase reload time by up to 17% without mods, and will improve melee speed and movement speed by up to 50% without mods. This can be affected by power strength to make this work even better, and using this in conjunction with your passive allows the passive to also generate faster as well. This is basically Speedy Gonzalez of buffs in Warframe. It's a very useful mod for utility to be able to run around and do what you got to do. But as a whole, it's also something that can affect allies within a 25 meter radius. So if you cast it within range of an ally, they too will then gain that buff as well as the augment. Now, the augment for this is called Shocking Speed, as we see up here. Shocking Speed basically turns you into a walking pylon. Any enemy that you come into contact with will then subsequently take 175 electrical damage and also then be knocked back slightly. Now, this doesn't count for any range. There is no added range to this. You physically have to come within contact of the enemy. This is not really going to be used for DPS, although for running super low level missions and speed running missions, this ability is amazing. The augment as well can be quite nice just to add in there for the sake of a little bit of extra damage in there, but it's not something you're going to use a tremendous amount over, say, some of the other augments that he has. Vault's 3 is Electric Shield. This is a barrier of electricity that Vault can summon forth. This shield acts as a buff as well as a defensive posture as well. Each shield that you put down will cause anything fired from your end to generate 50% additional electrical damage, as well as have 200% bonus crit chance. And the electric damage stacks. So for every shield you put down, and you can put down 5 of them max, you will have 50% bonus electrical damage. So if you put down 3, for example, you'd have 150% bonus electrical damage. And this can work in conjunction with the element types. For example, you've got Ignis, which is heat damage. You would then be dealing radiation damage, adding that crit chance, which gives you lots of lovely crit numbers, as well as then dealing radiation damage rather than just fire damage. The shield can also then block incoming fire, as I said, allowing for a good defensive posture. The duration of this shield is affected by duration, and the cost of it is also based on efficiency. Power strength will not affect how strong this shield is, however. It's always going to be a flat 200%, regardless of how many shields you have, and a guaranteed 50% bonus electric damage per shield. So the crit damage does not stack, but the electric damage does. Now, the augment for this ability is called Transistor Shield. And the best way of explaining this is the shield itself can be picked up by Vault initially. When picked up, you still get the same benefit from it, however, you're only able to use your secondary. When using the augment allows other players to then pick up the shield and gain the benefit from it as well, thus acting as a bit of a utility to your team, which can be very, very beneficial. Vault's 4 is called Discharge. This is a massive area of effect ability, which generates a wave of electricity that radiates from the point of which Vault is standing. Any enemy that is hit by this will turn into a pylon and be rooted in place and statically charged. Any enemy hit will then take 600 damage per tick over the course of its duration. Each enemy hit also turn into a pylon, dealing electrical damage to any enemy nearby. The initial targets by them, as I mentioned, are going to be rooted in place for 4.5 seconds, taking that 600 damage per tick, and it ticks twice per second. The initial cast also falls off over range, so the further away it travels, the more of a fall off it will have in terms of its power strength, falling off to a maximum of 50%. So the more range there is, the bigger that, the slower that fall off is. However, if you have small enough range, the damage fall off isn't quite as hard. This ability can work in conjunction with other abilities as well. For example, any enemy affected by the pylon, once using your 1 on them, will then generate an additional explosion of electrical damage, dealing damage to anyone within that range. This is one of the largest affecting moves in the game. It has possibly one of the highest range potentials of most abilities, on par with things like Siren, for example. The range of this ability is affected by ability range, the damage it deals, and the ticking damage is then subsequently affected by ability power strength, and can work very well for crowd control as well. The augment for this is called Capacitance. Capacitance is a augment that will convert 3% of the total enemy health damage dealt into shields. And this can also be converted into overshields, as you can see by my health bar on the top right there. And this can also then subsequently affect allies that are within the radius of that buff as well. So if we just jump off a second, get rid of those overshields, which doesn't work if I forgot. But as an ability, this is an immensely powerful AoE effect that has a huge range scaling, as well as some synergy with Volt's other abilities. So if we activate the 4, the length of time that they are shocked for, again based on the duration, can last for a very long period of time. Something to keep in mind as well is that you're not able to just spam this ability. You are only able to cast the Discharge again within 4 seconds of the shock actually ending. So you're not actually able to just spam it over and over again, keeping them indefinitely stun locked. And having Capacitance as an augment is also very useful, as it then allows you to aid your team in some regard as well, much like a Trinity would with her Overshield Energy Vampire. So you can see it can affect a very wide range, and this isn't even the first range it can do, so if we go even further away, it will still hit even from all the way over here. And you can sort of see the radius of effect just based on the ring that generates from Volt as well. On to Volt's builds. Now, Volt is a very playful frame. Every build that you're going to go with can have the inclination of his augments, as well as being very much based on the ability you want to prioritize. So, if you want to prioritize Volt's 4, or the potency of his 1, you're going to be focusing a lot on range. This first build that I'm going to show you is predominantly based around being in enclosed areas like Elite Sanctuary Onslaught or defense missions, where you want to focus on control and making your 4 hit as much of an area as possible. Now, the main thing I like to bring here is I like to have a minimum 250% range, so stretch, overextended. Power strength isn't needed on this build specifically, as the power strength fall off is quite tremendous and the damage it deals is quite large anyway. So with a bit of power strength on there, it works quite nicely. Getting the intensify and the power strength to go up to 140% power strength. The vitality is quite nice, just to have a bit of extra survivability, especially if you're doing something like ESO, when you're going to probably be taking a lot of damage. Ability Cunning Drift is always a good choice on this, just to have that less friction so you can slide further. That could also be replaced with something like Rush, for example, for that extra movement speed. But this is, again, this is sort of like your AoE crowd control / DPS build for low-level missions to clear large waves very quickly. Capacitance could be in turn replaced with something like Growing Power or Energy Conversion, I think it's called. Yes, Energy Conversion. So Energy Conversion is a good one for Volt, especially with this kind of build where you're going to be picking up a lot of energy orbs. So this sort of build's got focus on range. Volt's second build is more tailored towards duration, and this is what I would dub as the Eidolon hunting build. You want a little bit of survivability with things like vitality, over shields and health to keep you alive. The thing about this build, it is based on your duration. This one is going to allow your shields to last as long as possible. Having Shock Trooper to add electrical damage to your team also can add to that extra benefit of your shields as well. A little bit of efficiency to make them castable on the fly. Speed Drift to make sure you can cast them quicker whilst moving faster as well to get a benefit from your 2. Natural Talent and Speed Drift are not needed together, however you could also then replace Speed Drift with Power Drift, or Natural Talent with another mod of some kind. These two are just sort of my personal choice because I like being able to move fast whilst cast fast. And in terms of Shock Trooper, again, it's not needed. You could alternatively bring the Transistor Shield as well. Augments on Volt are very subjective on the player. You can bring them or not. It doesn't make the biggest of differences, but it's nice when you have them. And the third and final build I like to run, this is a more power strength based build. This is one you would use if you want to make a speed Volt. So this one is quite an interesting build as you want to have a lot of movement speed. The initial focus on this is power strength to make your 2 be as powerful as possible, and having duration to make it last as long as possible. So continuity, efficiency, a bit of power strength. So continuity, constitution, narrow-minded are the go-to duration mods. Now, Lightning Dash is a interesting augment for this, as it allows you to jump much further. And although that's not going to help you generate your passive as well, it does allow, because you're running so fast anyway, as you're speed running things, this will make life really, really useful. And because you're generating that extra bit of electrical damage with the bullet jump, it can then help you clear the lower missions as well. Especially if you then chuck in the augment for shocking speed. So as I mentioned earlier, as you're running through the missions, this would be extremely good for low-level missions to just be able to blast things down as you're running through. So if you're running some low-level survivability or defense, you don't even need to fire off any of your abilities. Just keep your 2 active, run around all over the place like a madman, like Sonic the Hedgehog, and you kill everything as you go. So that's really it in terms of builds. You sort of build based on the ability, and honestly, Volt is very good. He's a very simple frame to understand. There isn't too much intrinsicness to the way he builds. You base it on the ability you play, and then you focus on using that ability when you're done with that build. Survivability is kind of an issue for Volt. He does tend to suffer a lot from death in most missions he goes into. So adding things like Capacitance can be quite nice. But really, you're playing to a CC and DPS role with some extra utility thrown in there as well. So I hope this guide has been somewhat useful for you guys. If you have liked it, do leave a like. Share it to your friends, tell your family. We're trying to make these YouTube videos a little bit more intuitive. And if you have any further questions or if I've missed something out, do not hesitate in making a comment in the comment section down below. And if you want to come by the Twitch stream sometime and give me suggestions as to videos you would like to see, by all means, come by and suggest that as well. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll catch all of you in the next video. Ta-ra.